Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtota Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtota Shatashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gauda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Sababonam, Chapter 69, texts 1 through 6. But before that, we'll read the chapter summary. Chapter 69, Narada Muni visits Lord Krishna's palaces in Dwarka. This chapter relates how Narada Muni was amazed to see the household pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna, and how he offered prayers to the Lord. After killing the demon Naraka, Lord Krishna had simultaneously married 16,000 maidens, and sage Narada wanted to observe the Lord's diverse activities in this unique family situation. Thus he went to Dwarka. Narada entered one of the 16,000 palaces and saw goddess Rukmini personally rendering menial service to Sri Krishna, despite her being in the company of thousands of maidservants. As soon as Lord Krishna noticed Narada, he got up from his bed, offered obeisances to the sage, and seated him on his own seat. Then the Lord bathed Narada's feet, water on his own head. Such was the exemplary behavior of the Lord. After conversing with the Lord for a short while, Narada went to another of his palaces, where the sage saw Sri Krishna playing at dice with his queen and Uddhava. Going from there to another place, he found Lord Krishna coddling his infant children. In another palace, he saw him preparing to take a bath. In another, performing fire sacrifices. In another, feeding Brahmins. And in another, eating the remnants left by Brahmins. In one palace, the Lord was performing noontime rituals. In another, quietly chanting the Gayatri mantra. In another, sleeping on his bed. In another, consulting with his ministers. And yet in another, playing in the water with his female companions. Somewhere the Lord was giving charity to Brahmins. In another place, he was joking and laughing with his consort. And yet another place, he was meditating on the Supersoul. Somewhere he was serving his spiritual masters. In another place, he was arranging for the marriages of his sons and daughters. Somewhere else, he was going out to hunt animals. And elsewhere, he was moving about in disguise to find out what the citizens were thinking. Having seen all this, Narada addressed Lord Krishna. Only because I have served your lotus feet can I understand these varieties of your Yogamaya potency, which ordinary living beings bewildered by illusion cannot begin to perceive. Thus, I am most fortunate, and I simply desire to travel all over the three worlds, chanting the glories of your pastimes, which purify all the worlds. Sri Krishna asked Narada not to be confused by his vision of the Lord's transcendental opulences, and he described to him the purposes of his appearances in this world. He then honored the sage properly, according to religious principles, and Narada departed, continuously meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so if you could please repeat after me. Shri Shuka Uvacha Narakam Nihatam Shrutva Tatodvaham Cha Yoshitam Krishnenaikena Bhavinam Tadidrikshuhu Sma Nardaha Shri Shuka Uvacha Narakam Nihatam Shutva Tatodvaham Chayoshitam Krishne Naikena Bhavinam Tad Didrikshu Smanarada Shri Shukuvacha Narakam Nihitam Shutva Tatodvaham Chayoshitam Krishna Naikena Bhavinam Taddikshu Smanarada. Okay, please chant. Okay, please repeat. Shri Shukuvacha. Shukadev Goswami said, Narakam, the demon Naraka, Nihitam, killed, Shrutva, hearing, Tata, also, Udvaham, the marriage, Cha, and, Yoshitam, with women, Krishnena, by Lord Krishna, Ekena, one, Bhavinam, with many, Tat, that, Didrikshuhu, wanting to see, Sma, indeed, Naradaha, Narada. Okay, so I'll read the English translation now. Translation and commentary and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Shukadev Goswami said, hearing that Lord Krishna had killed Narakasura and had alone married many brides, Narada Muni desired to see the Lord in this situation. He thought, it is quite amazing that in a single body Lord Krishna simultaneously married 16,000 women, each in a separate palace. Thus the sage of the demigods eagerly went to Dwarka. The city was filled with the sounds of birds and bees flying about the parks and pleasure gardens, while its lakes, crowded with blooming Indivara, Amboja, Kalara, Kumuda, and Utpala lotuses, resounded with the calls of swans and cranes. Dwarka boasted 900,000 royal palaces, all constructed with crystal and silver and splendorously decorated with huge emeralds. Inside these palaces, the furnishings were bedecked with gold. Traffic moved along a well-laid-out system of boulevards, roads, intersections, and marketplaces, and many assembly houses and temples of demigods graced the charming city. The roads, courtyards, commercial streets, and residential patios were all sprinkled with water and shaded from the sun's heat by banners waving from flagpoles. Purport. And Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, beautifully describes the city of Dwarka as follows. Being inquisitive as to how Krishna was managing his household affairs with so many wives, Narada desired to see these pastimes and so set out to visit Krishna's different homes. When Narada arrived in Dwarka, he saw that the gardens and parks were full of various flowers of different colors and orchards that were overloaded with a variety of fruits. Beautiful birds were chirping and peacocks were delightfully crowing. There were tanks and ponds full of blue and red lotuses, and some of these sites were filled with varieties of lilies. The lakes were full of nice swans and cranes, whose voices resounded everywhere. In the city, there were as many as 900,000 great palaces built of first-class marble, with gates and doors made of silver. The posts of the houses and palaces were bedecked with jewels such as touchstone, sapphires, and emeralds, and the floors gave off a beautiful luster. The highways, lanes, streets, crossings, and marketplaces were all beautifully decorated. The whole city was full of residential homes, assembly houses, and temples, all of different architectural beauty. All of this made Dwarka a glowing city. The big avenues, crossings, lanes, and streets, and also the thresholds of every residential house were very clean. On both sides of every path there were bushes, and at regular intervals there were large trees that shaded the avenues so that the sunshine would not bother the passerby. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Katitvachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinitarinam Vancha Kalpadribhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So if we study the lives of pure devotees, whether they be in Vrindavan or Mathura or Dwarka or any place, we see that their life is governed by the principle of pure devotional service, and specifically the motto of which Srila Prabhupada termed, or Srila Prabhupada mentioned one time at least, the motto of everything for Krishna, nothing for me. One devotee in America, he joined in Los Angeles in the time of 1970s. He's a Srila Prabhupada disciple. But he recounts how when he was a new bhakta, he would go to the temple, and there was one young boy there, Dwarkadish. And Dwarkadish, he would go around with a plate. And on that plate, people would put donations. So they'd put bills and coins and so on. So this particular devotee, what he would do is he would have his bills in one pocket, and then he'd have his coins in the other pocket. So he would reach into the pocket with the coins, and then he would put some on the plate. So he kept on doing this, each time he would come to the temple. Now, at one particular point, Dwarkadish, who was a young boy, he was about 5 years old, or so, maybe 6, 7 years old. So at one particular point, Dwarkadish, he figured out this person's strategy. So he went to this devotee, and he went up to him with the plate, and this devotee, he was about to reach into the pocket to get out the coins, and then Dwarkadish, he tapped on the pocket with the coins, and then he tapped on the pocket with the bills, and he said, I don't want the coins, I want the bills. So at that particular point, this devotee was quite impressed with this boy's intelligence. So, like that, it's not that we have one pocket for Krishna and one pocket for ourselves. In other words, it's not that in the morning we are very Krishna conscious. We're trying to be Krishna conscious. And then later throughout the day, we do other things. But the idea is that our whole life should be dedicated to Krishna. And we see that, unfortunately, people are very bewildered by the material energy. The living entities are very bewildered. Bewildered by material opulence, and so on. But we see here in the descriptions of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's amazing description of Dwarka. It's, extremely opulent, like inconceivably opulent, Dwarka. Vrindavan, Dwarka. So much beauty, so much opulence. But it's not that the devotees in Dwarka, it's not that they are bewildered by that opulence. It's not that they walk into the palace and they think, oh wow, look, the palace, and they forget about Krishna. Or it's not that in Vrindavan, where there's so many chintamani trees, and as understood, you could get whatever you want from these trees. It's not that the devotees are there just collecting all day and forgetting about Krishna. So in other words, they are attached to Krishna. They are not attached to what Krishna or what opulence is there in Dwarka or Vrindavan. And we see that this is an issue in the religious realm, that people, they go to God or they go to Krishna, and they tend to become attached to what Krishna can give them or what God can give them, and not attached to Krishna or God. Just like within America, there was a very famous preacher, Christian preacher. And they asked him, what will you do when you go to heaven? It's a very interesting question. If someone was to ask us, what would we do when we go to the spiritual world? But they asked him, what will you do when you go to heaven? And he gave a very interesting answer. He said that I will serve God for 100 years, and then after that, I'll enjoy. Very interesting answer. So there's a difference in his mind between serving God and enjoying. Now, of course, it's not that all Christians think like this, but this person was, and he's very famous. So we see that sometimes people, they have misconceptions, and they want Srila Prabhupada liked this term, they want the kingdom of God without God. Just like I was told, I never watched, but I was told. In some Bollywood movies, sometimes we see that I was told that there's cases in these movies where Krishna is there, but more or less Krishna is playing like a supportive role. He's helping the couple get together, for example. In this way, sometimes people, they have a wrong conception that God, Krishna, he's just supposed to support me. I'm the main actor here, and Krishna is just supporting me. But this is the wrong conception. So therefore, it's very important that we study the lives of pure devotees. It's extremely important we study the lives of pure devotees, and that we try to serve them, hear from them, serve them. And of course, there's so many so many pure devotees we could study. Narottam Das Thakur, so many wonderful pastimes. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And of course for us as followers or of members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, the most important pure devotee that we should study is His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. And the more we could serve, or the more we could study his life, there's so many books have been written. Devotees have recounted their different experiences with Srila Prabhupada. Of course, you have the Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita. But so many books are there. And the more we could study the life and activities of Srila Prabhupada, the more we'll feel enlivened in Krishna consciousness, and the more we will not be, we will come to the platform of pure devotional service by studying and following and serving Srila Prabhupada and his followers and his sincere followers. And again, Srila Prabhupada was operating on this principle of everything for Krishna, nothing for me. In the early days in the Calcutta temple, many of Srila Prabhupada, or a number of Srila Prabhupada's American disciples were there managing the Calcutta temple. And at one particular point, Yamuna Devi writes this in her autobiography. She writes how the temple was not in a very good situation. The devotees were fighting with each other. Sometimes devotees do that. The devotees were fighting with each other. It was very unclean, and so on. It was a lot of complaining going on. And Srila Prabhupada, he happened to visit there. He happened to visit the Calcutta temple, and he called an Ishtagoshti. He called a meeting with all of the devotees. And then he said in the meeting, he addressed the devotees, and he said that Krishna consciousness will not always be easy. You should understand this. And then he went on to explain some of his own experiences. And he said, do you think it was easy for me to go to America all alone? Do you think that was easy? And then he said, do you think it was easy for me to stay at that house in Pennsylvania and keep my vegetables? Of course, he had to keep his vegetables in the refrigerator right next to the cat food. He said, do you think that was easy? And the devotees, they began reflecting, and they were reflecting in such a way that they were thinking that they never really thought about it. They just thought Srila Prabhupada just went and everything was smooth. And they became quite emotional. And then Srila Prabhupada said that, so in this way, Krishna consciousness will not always be easy. So therefore, you have to follow these principles of Rupa Goswami as outlined in the Nectar of Instruction. Utsaha nishchaya darya tat tat karma bhavartanat sangatyagat satovite shadbir bhakti prasidati. Enthusiasm, patience, confidence. Specifically, he mentioned these first three. And interesting enough, it's always good to note that Srila Prabhupada said that enthusiasm comes from following the rules and regulations. So we follow the rules and regulations and enthusiasm comes. So he said we should be patient, confident, enthusiastic. And then he went on to say, he said, my personal motto is, everything for Krishna, nothing for me. And then he gave you could say, maybe like a practical solution, if you want to look at it that way. He said that what you should do is you should meet once a week You should discuss the problems. You should write them down on a piece of paper. You should all discuss and agree and write them down on a piece of paper and then move forward. But then Srila Prabhupada went on to say that, he said, actually, we have a tendency to operate or think of things in a material way. He said, actually, the most important thing is we should take shelter of this hearing and chanting about Krishna. Of course, meetings are there, but we should take shelter of the hearing and chanting of Krishna as the most important. So if we study and serve and listen to devotees, then we will get a very wonderful result. And what is that result? The Srimad Bhagavatam explains in the first canto, second chapter, text 16, I believe. Shu shu sho shadadanasya vasudeva kata ruchihi syan mahat sevya vipra punya tirtana shevanat. So the explanation of the verse is that by serving great souls who are completely free from vice, great service is done. And by that service, one gains a taste for Krishna consciousness or hearing about Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada explains in that purport that whoever we serve, we get those particular qualities of that person. So therefore it's so important that we serve advanced devotees. And listening to advanced devotees, what do they tell us? Of course, they tell us to surrender to Krishna. But they tell us to engage in the process of chanting Hare Krishna. One of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's favorite verses, Ata Shri Krishna Nama Adi Nabhavedgram Indriyai Sevan Mukhe Jivadao Swayameva Spiratada. That the material, blunt senses cannot perceive Krishna. The mind, the senses, they cannot perceive Krishna. They have no access to Krishna's names, pastimes, so on. But by engaging the tongue and chanting Hare Krishna and taking food offered to Krishna with love and devotion, then the senses become purified and Krishna reveals himself. So this is the power of engaging our senses in Krishna's service. And as Srila Prabhupada explains, Krishna is not a poor man. It's not that he needs our offerings. Krishna has so many unlimited numbers of devotees, right? Goddesses of fortune. So many offerings are there. So he doesn't need our offerings. But just as a young boy, young child, Srila Prabhupada gives an example that the child tastes a biscuit and they think the biscuit's very nice. So then they go to the father and, here, please take this biscuit. And the father accepts it out of love and devotion, out of affection. So similarly, Krishna, he accepts our offerings not because he needs them, but out of affection for us. Yes, so by studying and by serving and by listening to pure devotees, advanced devotees, we will come to the platform of pure Krishna consciousness. We'll come to the ecstatic platform of love for Krishna, and which is the nature of the soul. So does anybody have any question or comment? Yes, Panchagoda Prabhu.
Where am I?
Kayami, he needs a microphone.
You fooled our sound man. He wasn't ready for it.
I caught him off guard. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. The idea that we're trying to serve Krishna, we may find ourselves maybe in difficulty or in need or want, but we might think that, well, I'm serving Krishna, he won't mind if I take a little bit, because it's too hard to do it, to give everything to Krishna and just survive. But how do we control that kind of mentality, or not feel guilty or feel that I'm doing something wrong, but I'm justifying it within myself because, after all, I am serving, and Krishna's given me the intelligence on how to put a little bit in my pocket and the rest for Krishna.
Yeah.
How do we control that mentality?
Okay, thank you. I heard Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he had one disciple, and it was just amazing what he would do. He was a householder, and he had wife and children and so on. He was working for money. So what he would do is he would get his paycheck, and he would just give it all to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the whole thing. And at one particular point, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he understood, that, he has to provide for his wife and children, so, he would give back some to the wife for their maintenance.
The wife complained at all?
Well, he gave some back to her. He would give it back, yeah.
Just checking.
But anyways, that's another point. That's a very high level of bhakti there. You have Srivas Pandit also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. He displays a very high level of that as well. He said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was wondering, Srivas, you're not working. How you have a family? How are you maintaining yourself? And he said, well, I serve Krishna and things are provided. And he said that if I don't clap, if I clap 3 times, and if what I need is not there at my home, then I'll just go drown myself in the Ganga. Of course, this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate associate and so on. We can't imitate such things, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that, Srivas Pandit, he said, even if the goddess of fortune, her whole treasury is gone, you will never go hungry. So these are very high level examples, but this particular tendency to some for Krishna, some for me, and after all I'm serving Krishna, so he won't mind. It definitely needs to be controlled, it definitely needs to be checked, and it shouldn't be done. Things should be done in an authorized way. When we talk about controlling lust, or anger, or greed, these different things that may obstruct that do obstruct our bhakti, these have to be controlled. The senses have to be controlled. Vacho vegam, manasa kroda vegam, jiva vegam, adurapasta vegam, etan vegam, yovishaheti dira, sarvam epimam prativim shashishyat. So all of the senses have urges, and they have to be controlled. So how do we control those? Raghunath Das Goswami, in his Manushiksha, he explains that while we are going down the path of bhakti, thugs may come out. Gangsters, thugs, what do you call them in India? Gundas. They may come out and try to rob us. They try to steal, whatever we have in our possession. And for a devotee, what is the most important thing they have? That taste for Krishna consciousness, that attraction for Krishna. So they try to they try to steal those things from us: lust, anger, greed, these different thugs personified. So he gives a solution. He says, if we encounter such personalities on the road of bhakti, what does he say? He says we should call out. To who? Krishna. Call out to Krishna, or sometimes it's translated as we should call out to the devotees of Krishna. Now, of course, someone may say that we don't have such inclination. We're going down the road of bhakti, and the thugs come out, and we say, okay, take everything I have. Sure. In other words, we may just willingly engage. So then the question is, well, how do we get that determination? So that determination is gained through association of pure devotees. So practically speaking, the main way we're able to control these tendencies is to associate very closely with pure devotees in the process of specifically the 5 potent forms of devotional service, which Srila Prabhupada very expertly designed the morning program. Bhagavatam, in a holy place, chanting the holy name, associating with devotees, and the deities. So by that we're able to...
In interviews, a lot of times the reporters ask, where do you get your money and where's your wealth? And Prabhupada very emphatically says, Krishna, Krishna arranges everything. So showing that we're actually totally dependent on Krishna. Of course, we have to use our intelligence as a householder, and you have family responsibilities, you're working. The formula that Rupa Goswami said, 50% for temple, but at the same time, I'm maintaining my family and Krishna consciousness in the household. So there are many allowances, but as far as the idea that we shouldn't, think that Krishna's property also belongs to me.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Krishna will give us the intelligence to operate in such a way to, he'll provide what we need, but we should be very honest and sincere. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I was just wondering, seeing you, speak so nicely, perhaps maybe one time somebody may come across you and say, I'm sure you're a Krishna Bhakta. So what will you say when somebody say, you're Krishna devotee, and we read your book, and we heard your God has about 16,000 wives, and you say you are Krishna Bhakta. So what would be your response to that?
Okay, thank you. Good question. Also good question. So if someone was to come up to me and say, oh, you're a Krishna devotee, and you're trying to be a Krishna devotee, and we've read in your books that Krishna has 16,108 wives. What's going on with that? One thing in the Catholic religion, it's a very interesting idea that they have. But the nuns, means the women who take vows of chastity, and they decide not to marry, they just single throughout their lives. They have some ceremony in which they, or an idea in which they accept Lord Jesus Christ as their husband. Very interesting. So apparently, now I'm not sure if I've repeated it before, and I've repeated it a place, and devotees have claimed it's true. But anyways, there was apparently a case in Europe in which the devotees were taken to court, and they were being accused of worshiping an immoral God. God has so many wives. And specifically the Catholic Church was pushing this. So within the courtroom, they were going back and forth, and the idea that was brought up was that one of the lawyers brought up that, well, can you please answer this, dear, Catholic man? As far as I understand, within your religion, Jesus, the nuns, they accept Jesus as their husband. Is that true? And then the man said yes. And he said, okay, well, Krishna, he accepts so many, and also Jesus Christ accepts so many, so what's the problem? Now, when we think of Krishna accepting so many wives, one thing is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the cause of all causes. So, in other words, everyone is intimately part and parcel of him, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. What's the verse? Mamai vangsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. So, we are all intimately part and parcels of Krishna. So if Krishna decides to accept so many wives, that's fine. He has that prerogative. He could do that. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's not that Krishna is doing that for mundane reasons. These queens were pure devotees of Krishna. And they were captured by the Narakasura. And practically their life was, in a sense, for them, it was destroyed. They stayed many days in the home of a man. Traditionally, if a woman was to do that, no one would marry her. So they were young girls. So Krishna, he killed Narakasura, and he delivered all of them. And not only did he deliver them, but he married all of them. So in this way, we could see how devotion outweighs material disqualification. So that's another point also. So I would say something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other question? Yes, or comment?
Or complaint.
Or complaint?
In that court case, so when he said yes, the lawyer said, so how many nuns are in the world? Mm. So he said, so many, so then Jesus is worse than Krishna.
Yes. He has more. Thank you. All right. Any last question or comment? All right. Okay. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.